Off segment continues. And with our Game Day Nation basketball edition kicking off in just 2 weeks, we're taking this one to the hard court. BCSN's Mark Kuhn sits down with Perrysburg head coach Dave Boyce. With over 3 decades of coaching and 19 years at Perrysburg, there's a lot to talk about.
Dave, you've been sitting on 499 career wins since the end of last season. So you've had all spring, all summer, most of the fall to think about it. Do you think about it? Is it consuming, or is it just, I'm going to get it eventually and it'll happen when it'll happen?
Well, I think sitting on 499 makes it easier. You're assuming it'll happen this year. I mean, I think last year was the year that was very, tense, thinking it was coming, and wanting to get it over with. Ending on 499 was not the way you wanted it to go, but it probably makes this year easier in that respect.
There's a lot to happen between now and March. One thing we know is going to happen in March is you're going to be in Columbus. You're going to be honored by the Ohio High School Basketball State Coaches Association as the Paul Walker Award winner. What does that mean to you to be honored by your brethren like that?
I mean, it's definitely a career award. There's 1,600 coaches in Ohio, and one coach gets it. And I remember when I first joined the Coaches Association and started learning the history of coaching in Ohio and saw some of the names who had won it. It was always something that, I thought would be really, an honor. Never thought it would be me. Never thought, that was something that you could even shoot for. So it's pretty humbling.
You've been coaching for almost 4 decades, 35 years now. As we mentioned, 499 wins. That tells me 2 things. You've coached a long time, but you've also had a lot of success. How much of that success is longevity? How much of that longevity is success?
Well, I mean, I think the longevity comes to the way I've done it. I've tried to build programs, and I haven't gone for transfers. I haven't tried to recruit kids. We've tried to build from the bottom up with the youth programs. We've tried to work with other programs in the high school. We've tried to work with the teachers. And I think when you do those kinds of things, your support tends to be a little bit wider and deeper. And then, you can withstand an average year or two. And if you keep doing things right, you tend to keep your job. And I think that's the longevity part. I think the success is, sometimes if you're in it long enough, you're going to get some talent. And, I had a great run of talent down in Columbus, down here, or up here in Perrysburg. It's been much more consistent. We've just had talented kids coming through, smart kids, hard-nosed kids who play well as a team, some great supportive parents. But I've been very fortunate, too, to have some really good assistant coaches who've been with me for a long time, who understand what I want. And, I don't think you have success without all those things coming together.
Times you won Northern Lakes League titles. I'm sure all your teams have special places in your heart. But of those 9 NLL champs, are there any that stand out to you?
I think when you go into coaching, or at least I know I had some goals, and one was to hopefully coach my own kids. And with my older son David, we won the league twice, in 07 and 08, and then with my younger son Brian, we had a great run against Southview in 09, but they won it, and then Brian's team won it in 10. So, I mean, just selfishly, those are the ones that stick out. I think the team that last won it 2 years ago will definitely go down as one of my favorites, with Griff Sattler and Nick Sanford and Matt Gruden. On that team, there were 3 guys who had been cut as 7th or 8th graders who started for us. And, I thought that was a great accomplishment for those guys to be cut at one time, and deservedly cut. They weren't ready at that point. They weren't big enough, or they weren't developed enough, but they just hung in there. They kept plugging away. They didn't have big egos, and they ended up having a great season and won the league.
Do you now use those kids as examples, as motivation for guys that maybe don't necessarily make it in junior high, that, hey, your career's not over, keep playing basketball, there's other things you can do to stay involved, you could work your way back into this program?
Well, I think with any program, you're looking for cultural lore and you know, we've probably used some names for 4 or 5 years, and you're always hoping you got more names to use that the younger kids coming up will recognize, and certainly those guys will be players that we'll be able to talk about for the next 4 or 5 years. You know, when we're at youth camp, when we're talking to 7th grade teams, kids are getting cut. Like we just cut some 9th graders last night, and we're going to cut tonight, and you know, we got to tell those guys, hey, you're more than welcome to come back out next year, keep working at it, hit the weight room, and you know, next year's team is definitely not set.
I have to imagine that's one of the more difficult parts of coaching, telling a kid it's not going to work out for you this year.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard because, you know, every kid believes he's good. But the reality is, for a lot of those guys, you know, sometimes being cut, knowing they've got to go back to the drawing board, get to work, is not the worst thing for them. But the reality of the matter is that a lot of times it's simply some of those guys need 12 months to grow again. It's a very athletic game. It's a game where not only do you have to be big enough and strong enough to compete at this level, but you play offense and you play defense, and you don't have a huddle. And you know, it's not easy to be one of those top 7 guys who get to play at 7:30 on Friday night.